Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 2014 Mazda 2. Up front is a 1.5 liter inline 4 and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Mazda 2 for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it is my personal goal to drive every single car that Mazda has ever built, and this is one step closer to that goal. The other reason is that this is a 2014 Mazda 2, which means it is the last year it was offered here in the US. They discontinued it for 2015, although they offered it in the rest of the world, actually still till today. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. One last thing before we get on to the engine is the fact that this is a US spec Mazda 2. Now, the Mazda 2 was actually a lot more popular overseas. For every one Mazda 2 Mazda sold here in the United States, they sold 6 in Europe. And in Australia and Thailand, they offered a Mazda 2 sedan. Here we only got the hatch. So if you live in any of those spots, I'd love to hear your feedback down in the comment section down below. But just know that this is the only one that we got here in the US, and I'll be talking about the US spec Mazda 2 for the remainder of the video. But let's get back to that 1.5 liter inline 4. Well, it makes about 102 horsepower, I think 103 foot-pounds of torque. I'll put the actual numbers up on the screen. This is not a powerful engine. It's a little 4-cylinder, 1.5 liter. That's not the point of this car. Really, this whole car was meant to be a city car. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but you don't need power when you're moving 5 feet a minute. And so, in return, you get really good gas mileage. Again, it's up on the screen. Kilometers per liter for you foreign viewers is up at the top of the screen, so you can kind of justify your own means. And so, at the end of the day, this is not powerful. This is not fast. It honestly, it handles decently well. It's not a complete slush box when it comes to actual handling. Is it a backroad canyon carver? Of course not. But that's not what it was meant to be from the factory. Like I said, paired to it, 4-speed automatic transmission, and this is where you start to get into trouble with highway driving. Please, please, please do not buy a Mazda 2 if you anticipate a lot of highway miles. This is a city car, and that has a lot to do with the transmission. You are screaming on the highway. It does not want to do past 70 miles an hour. Because it just runs out of gears. It only has 4 gears to go through. The other reason it's not good on the highway is the wind noise. This is a tiny little car, and there's not much sound deadening. The windows aren't really that thick, and so you're going to hear everything, which can get tiresome on the highway. However, you could find this with a 5-speed manual, so if that's something you desire, you can actually pick up a manual Mazda 2 here in the States. Last but not least, of course, the Mazda 2 is front-wheel drive. No surprise there. So let's talk about the interior. Not a whole lot to talk about here, but a couple interesting features for sure. In front of me, I have 3 main gauges. On the left is my tachometer, in the center is my speedometer, and on the right I have an odometer, what gear I'm in, as well as my fuel. This is a digital gauge, which is pretty nice for an economy car. However, the gauges themselves are pretty plain. They really remind me of early 2000s Toyota products. Sort of basic, simple, very much a bolted-on afterthought. On the steering wheel, I get no buttons at all. It honestly looks like the steering wheel of a bumper car that you'll find at the county fair. It has no buttons. If you take off the Mazda logo, you're left with nothing. I mean, it's very, very funny. It's very cheap, very basic. But that means I don't get any cruise control, nor do I have steering wheel volume options for the radio. So you're going to have to take your hand off the wheel and turn the radio like every other old car in the world. Boo hoo 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 hoo. To the left of me, I just have my traction control off if you want to get rowdy with it. And then on the door, I do have my power mirrors, power windows, but no power locks. Coming into the center, I do have 2 climate control vents, although they are spaced out on the dash. Then I have my hazard switch and my radio. My radio reminds me a lot of a Mini Cooper's radio. I'll cut to one here if I have some footage of it, of a modern Mini Cooper's radio. On the left, I have AM/FM scan, CD, aux, and USB, tune, and text. And on the right, I have my number pad as well as my folder. Down below that, I do have my climate control options, very, very basic here. Although they do have very good tactile feedback, they don't feel that cheap. I mean, they're definitely cheap plastic parts, but they don't feel as cheap as one would think. And actually, interestingly, down below that, disconnected from the aircon, is the recirculating and outside vent switch, which has a very solid clunk. Reminds me a lot of my NA Miata that I used to own, because you actually hear the trap door switch from recirculating to outside air. Then we have the shifter itself. Nothing really too interesting about the shifter. This is a pretty standard automatic shifter you'll find in most Mazdas from this era. However, what is interesting, something I've never noticed on a car before, is that there's actually a line down at the bottom to show you which gear you are in. This is pretty helpful. This is a cheap way, instead of having those little windows with the little red line, it's just a white line at the very bottom of the shifter, and it vaguely points to which gear you're in. I've never noticed this on a car. I'm not sure if I've driven a car with this before, but this is definitely the first time I've noticed it. Then down on the center console, I do have a USB in and aux in, that is for the radio, as well as a 12-volt outlet to the left of that. This is where my power lock button is. This is very interesting. This is very much a European feature, and we'll talk about that later on. The lock and unlock switch is actually down here in the middle. This is most likely so if the car is left-hand drive or right-hand drive, they just leave the same button, they use the same button. It's a cost-saving method. That's what I would assume out of a car like this. But like I said, very, very European to have the lock and unlock switches down in the center console. Then I have two cup holders. Now the seats. The seats I find very, very interesting. I am so used to driving economy cars that have horrible, horrible seats. I always say they feel like someone crushed up an Amazon Prime box and shoved it under some fabric. However, that's not the case here in the Mazda 2. I actually find these seats very, very comfortable. I sort of slid right into them. They're nice and plush and comfy. I don't feel any acute pressure anywhere on my back. I actually am pleasantly enjoying these seats. And like I said, that's very hard to find out of a car in this class. I've driven the Kia Rio, very hard seats. Chevy Spark, very hard seats. Pontiac G3, very hard seats. And see, just now accelerating there, it has a good amount of give where it still gives support, but you're not, strapped down to a piece of wood. I absolutely love that. I never thought I would be saying that in a Mazda 2, but I actually really enjoy these seats. I think these seats are really comfortable. But speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so we'll do a back seat review reluctantly. All right, so I anticipate this not going super well. All right, so we're in the back of the 2014 Mazda 2, and honestly, it's not as bad as I thought. It's not good back here. Would I want to sit back here for 3 hours on a road trip to the Wisconsin Dells? Absolutely not. This is not very comfortable. However, I actually can manage it. It's not bad. My knees do hit the seats, but you kind of spread your legs a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. The seats are a lot harder back here than they are up front. The front seats I think are really nice. These are not really nice. However, you can fit 4 people in here. I can't imagine the engine will be happy, but you can fit 4 people in here, and that is very nice. All right, it's windy, and I'm by a busy road, so I apologize about the noise. However, to get into the trunk, it's this button you hit. Sort of like a belly button sort of button. And here's the trunk. Nothing really too crazy. I do get a nice light back here. These are not usually LED. The owner has swapped those out. These seats do go down, which is pretty nice. If you need a little get around hatchback, you could fit probably, some decent stuff in there if you had a small business or something. Other than that, nothing really too crazy to see back here. I do have a mounting point for a child seat though. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Alex and Shannon. Now we got to talk about the looks. This is sort of this is the end of Mazda's smiley generation. This car looks really happy to be here. It's just a little guy that's just happy to be included in life. And I don't blame it. It looks all right. I think definitely there are some aero packages people have done. I'm not mad at that. I wish that they offered some type of skirt package or front bumper package or something of the sort. But beggars can't be choosers. Like I said, this is a city car. And so let's talk about that. The Mazda 2 debuted here in 2009 and lived until 2014. They didn't really sell all that many here. I believe they sold under 50,000 Mazda 2s over that 5-year run, which for a small economy car that's supposed to be cheap and affordable, isn't that great of a production run. However, like I said, they sold almost 300,000 of these in Europe, and close to that number in Asia. I'm talking Thailand, I'm talking China, and of course Japan. And Australia. Australia loved these as well. This is a global car, and actually, if you want to talk rarity, probably the most rare version is this, the US spec one. And so the Mazda 2 is a continuation of the Mazda 121. Back in the day, if we go all the way back, the Mazda 121 was actually a Ford Festiva clone. It was built in the same factory as the Festiva, had the same everything as the Festiva, except it had Mazda badges. It actually had a Mazda engine as well. The Festiva had a Mazda engine. And I'm showing a Festiva now. I haven't driven a 121, although just squint your eyes, looks the exact same. But after the 121, Mazda pulled the 2 from the US market, not to return until 2009. But in that time, they still sold the Mazda 2s globally. This is a third generation Mazda 2. We did not get the first or second gen. That, of course, excludes the Mazda 121. That's technically not a Mazda 2 generation, blah, blah, blah. And also around the world, this was not even known as the Mazda 2. It was known as the Mazda Demo. And like I said, they made a sedan version of this car overseas. And so in 2014, Mazda didn't really sell all that many, and they decided to pull it from the American market. Now you can currently find the Mazda 2 sharing a chassis with the Toyota Yaris, of which I've driven a Yaris here in the States, and it actually has Mazda infotainment in it. A lot of Mazda features as well. And so the Mazda 2 does live on in Puerto Rico, Japan, and in Europe and Australia, but we don't get it here anymore. And so my final thoughts on this car is that this is a tiny little city car. If you live in a downtown urban area, you're paying $200 a month for that parking spot that's shoved under a tin roof. You look out your rear porch and you don't even see the ground, you just see other roofs. If that's your living situation and you need a little car, maybe to get out of the city every once in a while, maybe to go to the south side or north side, get a Mazda 2. I'm actually thoroughly really enjoying this car. Like I said, it's a lot more comfortable than I would have thought. The seats are great. I can't get over how great these seats are. It drives well, it handles well, and as long as you don't take it on the highway, or at least maybe you take it on the highway once in a blue moon, that's fine, sure. It'll do highway speeds. It's just not super happy about it. This is a perfect car for you. If those living situations apply to you, this is perfect. Me personally, I drive 2,500 miles a month. I spend most of my days on the highway commuting hours and hours on end. This is not a good car for me, but I respect the crap out of this thing. I actually kind of like it. And yes, this is a Ford Fiesta underneath, really. Shares a platform with one. Shares a lot of parts with one. This is still when Ford owned Mazda before the nasty breakup. I like it. I like this thing a lot. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Shannon for letting me take out her 2014 Mazda 2. I really appreciate it. And I do have to say, you got a hot boyfriend as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.